So, Batya, the Trump trial is not in session today because it's Wednesday. So Trump is given one day during the work week to actually campaign for president. The rest of the days he has to spend time in court, where we're getting scintillating reports about his behavior, including this one. Take a listen to SOT 16.
Your observations on Donald Trump today.
Sleeping. Again, you know, they have tried a number of different devices. Yeah, sleeping for a lot of it. I would say they've tried a number of different devices to keep Trump awake, partially in response, or what appears to be in response to collective press corps observations. So, for example, when there are sidebars, an attorney doesn't leave his side anymore because leaving him alone means leaving him to potentially sleep. He has a stack of papers with him at all times now to go through. But neither of those things seem to have protected Trump from his own exhaustion today. More than not, when I looked up to see how Trump was receiving the testimony, Trump was not receiving it at all because his eyes were closed.
I want to make it differentially. Yeah. We don't know if he's sleeping. His eyes are sometimes closed. It could be because he's trying not to react.
Oh, wait, what? The entire narrative could be wrong? What? Just slip that in there at the end. They're obsessed. There's huge close-ups. And yesterday there was a report about, or 2 days ago, whether he was passing gas in the courtroom. And now it's on to his alleged sleeping, or maybe not at all. Either all the time or never. That's our report, MSNBC.
Megyn, you made an amazing point a few weeks ago that Trump is like a supervillain in a superhero movie where the more you throw at him, like the bigger he gets and the stronger he gets. And he has a genius for having made the right enemies. You know, if you make the right enemies in life, you don't actually have to be that smart because they will tell you what the truth is by being the opposite of it. And in a way, I really feel that Trump understood where the danger lies, who the completely, totally empty, banal elites telling everybody what they should think and believe. He understood that they were the enemy. And so he kind of positioned himself on the other side of it. And with every step, with every day, with every report, they just reveal the emptiness of what they are. I mean, can you imagine being this obsessed with somebody about whether he's asleep or whether he's not asleep, whether he's passing gas, every micro expression?
That you would report it.
It's so ridiculous. And the other point I would make is that I think conservatives tend to see all of these attacks on Trump and think of them as a kind of coordinated effort on behalf of the Democratic Party. But the truth is actually a lot more banal and a lot more disturbing. There's no real coordination. It's just that every single one of these people, every single one of these, DAs and people in charge and politicians and members of the media have main character syndrome. They think that they are responsible personally for keeping this person, the most popular politician in America, out of office. And so they are each doing the same thing in lockstep, like those zombified students on college campuses, but without realizing that they're actually obeying a much larger diktat from the elites to make sure that the working class does not get their chosen politician in office.
You'd really think after Russiagate, it would have occurred to them how they'd been used, how they were being used. But they don't care because they were also in service of the same mission. It's like, fine, if you had told me explicitly I was being fed misinformation, I would have done the same thing because we all had the same goal to get Trump. There is some coordination. There was a report just this week, by the way, that Andrew Weissman, this former FBI lawyer, and Jeffrey Toobin, everyone knows what he's famous for, and maybe another, was it George Conway? Can't remember who the third lawyer was. Lawrence Tribe, Bill Kristol are having weekly meetings about the Trump trial to get their talking points straight. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like Toobin, with all his troubles, is supposed to be a straight news legal analyst for CNN. And Weissman, same for MSNBC. Conway and Kristol are partisans, so they can do what they want and say what they want. But that is pretty gross. You're not supposed to get together and come up with your talking points. Where, by the way, is the, Trump supporter in their little group? What have they done to make sure that the analysis they're about to feed Remember CNN is supposed to be the new middle CNN? It's like gone back to its objectivity. Really? Where's George Conway used to be a Republican, but he hates Trump more than anybody alive. Anyway, it's just one example of how in some instances there actually is coordination, but I agree with you in general. So the Trump trial goes on. They're obsessed over his behaviors. By the way, the reason Trump was closing his eyes, more likely than not, is yesterday was incredibly boring. They had a guy up from C-SPAN for hours trying to lay the foundation on how C-SPAN takes in videos, because they needed C-SPAN videos to come in at some point in this trial. Who the hell wouldn't you sleep through the real C-SPAN? Never mind the guy talking about C-SPAN. So it's ridiculous. I guarantee you Trump won't be asleep when Michael Cohen's on the stand or Stormy Daniel. Now, in conjunction with all that, Time magazine decides to do an in-depth piece on Donald Trump. He's on the cover, sitting, looking somewhat foreboding. It's in black and white, and it reads, "If he wins, if he wins." It's like the OJ, "if I did it." And this is Time magazine's shot at what a second Trump term would look like. They did get 2 interviews with Trump because even though he knows the media hates him, he continues to give them interviews, even the ones he knows won't be fair. And they also had conversations, they say, with his closest advisors. It was conducted at Mar-a-Lago on April 12th and phone conversations on April 27th, so it's recent. The opening line reads, "Donald Trump thinks he's identified a crucial mistake of his first term. He was too nice." What they're actually referring to is a reference he made to his former top advisors, who he now says, "I was too nice. I don't want to embarrass people, so I let them quit. In my second term, I think I would fire. I'll fire more." So, okay, take that for what it's worth. But it goes on to talk about things that I think will have some Republicans running to the polls. He'll reinstall many of the same policies from his first term when it comes to immigration. Remain in Mexico, directing federal funding to resume construction of the border wall, relying on the National Guard to round people up and deport undocumented immigrants. As soon as he takes office, a border security and immigration package and extension of his 2017 tax cuts. This is going to have the right marching through all sorts of weather to vote for the guy. But the left had a different kind of reaction to some other parts of the article. For example, on law, he says he might fire U.S. attorneys who refuse his orders to prosecute someone. By the way, the political U.S. attorneys get fired as soon as the new president comes in. That's an Obama thing. On his enemies, would he prosecute Fani Willis or Alvin Bragg? He demurs but offers no promises. No, I don't want to do that. But we're going to look at a lot of things. What they've done is a terrible thing. On going after Biden, I wouldn't want to hurt Biden. I have too much respect for the office. But also says that if the Supreme Court says the president does not get immunity, Biden, I am sure, will be prosecuted for all of his crimes. Time notes Biden has not been charged with any, right? Hasn't been charged with any, but he's committed some. That's what the special counsel found. He just wasn't charged because he was a well-meaning elderly man. So he could still get charged. Anyway, let me give you a sampling of some of the left-wing freakout in response to this piece.
I read this big Time interview this morning, and it's Trump in his own words saying these scary things. There won't be guardrails next time. So he's admitting he's going to staff a White House and the entire federal government with either liars or lunatics.
If he is elected to serve a second term as president, he plans out loud to drag our country into a dark new era, a place we've never been before, more closely resembling authoritarianism.
You either vote and you vote for the country you grew up in and try to fix that, or you go to dictatorship.
And it almost felt like a call to arms to his supporters. Yeah. Like, stand back, stand by.
This is how Hitler talked before he seized power. It is how Mao talked. It is how Mussolini talked. Stop him now, while we still can.
Okay. I wouldn't want to hurt Biden. I have too much respect for the office. But if Supreme Court says the president doesn't have immunity, Biden, I'm sure, will be prosecuted for his crimes. This is how Mao talked. What?
Yes, Hitler, famous for saying he would never go after a political opponent, but is sure that the justice system will be, just and take due course, right? Like Hitler's famous crime. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Megyn, there was a poll a couple weeks ago that found that 42% of Democrats support rounding up illegal immigrants and deporting them. 42% of Democrats. And this reveals what is going on here. The liberal media thinks that if you are not totally woke, totally radical left, you are a fascist and don't have a right to vote. And that includes their own voters. It includes the views of the average Democrat. There is so much contempt and loathing for average Americans just trying to get along. And honestly, Megyn, I was listening to these quotes from Trump when he said he wouldn't go after Fani Willis. I was like, oh, wow, I wouldn't have expected him to say he wouldn't do that.
We're like, why not?
It's like very reasonable, and it's so amazing, the projection. I mean, as if they are not currently weaponizing the justice system to go after their political opponent because he is so popular. Even as they know they are doing that, they talk about ushering in a dark new age that they have already implemented. They have so much contempt for their viewers and so much contempt for the average American. It's dripping off of everything they say and everything they do.
Yes, gosh, yes, well said. So we pulled separately Andrew Weissman, who we mentioned is doing the weekly call reportedly with these other lawyers to getting their messaging together. And he's one of the biggest Trump critics. And he had the following warning. We hear this from the Democrats a lot in the lead up to a presidential election. I happen to believe that the Andrew Weissmans of the world actually believe what you're about to hear this time. Listen.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of democracy as we know it. That is what is so shocking, is how close we are. And we are really on the razor's edge of that kind of result.
One vote away from the end of democracy as we know it. That's what's at stake. There's something called debt traps. And that debt trap you might be caught in is not your fault. Did you cause inflation? Did you set gas prices or make credit card companies jack up interest rates? The thing is that debt trap can destroy your life if you don't get out of it now. And that's why I want to tell you about Done with Debt. Done with Debt has debt relief strategists who can stand between you and your bill collectors. Then they negotiate a plan to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy and without taking out loans. But listen, some of these strategies are time sensitive. So contact Done with Debt and see if they can help you with a free consultation. Share what you're dealing with and they could explain a strategy to erase your debt faster and easier than you ever thought possible. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Donewithdebt.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.